Chapter 13. I was like Mama. I didn't think Elizabeth seriously would be any help around the place. She was too little and too skinny, and I figured she'd just be an extra bother for Ma. But we were wrong. Just like Bud seriously said, she was a big help. She could tote water from the spring, she could feed the chickens and pack in wood, cook cornbread, wash dishes, and wash little Arliss, and sometimes even change the prickly pear poultice on my leg. And she didn't have to be told either. She was right there on hand all the time, just looking for something to do. She was a lot better about that than I ever was. She wasn't as big, and she couldn't do as much as I could, but she was sure willing. She didn't even back off when Ma hooked Jumper to the cart and headed to the field to gather in the corn. That was a job I always hated. It was hot work, and the corn shucks made my skin itch and sting till sometimes I'd wake up at night scratching like I'd stumbled into a patch of bull nettles. But it didn't seem to bother Elizabeth. In fact, it seemed like she, Ma, and little Arliss had a real good time gathering corn. I'd see them driving past the cabin, all three of them sitting on top of a cart load of corn, and they'd all be laughing and talking and having such a romping big time, playing with the speckled pup, that before long I half wished I was able to gather corn too. In a way, it sort of hurt my pride for a little old girl like Elizabeth to come in and take over my jobs. Pa had left me to look after things, but now I was laid up, and here was a girl handling my work about as good as I ever could. Still, she couldn't get out and mark hogs or kill meat or swing a chopping axe. Before they were finished gathering corn, however, we were faced with a trouble a whole lot too big for any of us to handle. The first of it came when the Spot heifer failed to show up one evening at milking time. Ma had come in too late from the corn gathering to go look for her before dark, and the next morning she didn't need to. Spot came up by herself, or rather, she came past the house. I heard her first. The swelling in my leg was about gone down, and I was weak as a rain-chilled chicken, but most of the hurtin' had stopped, and I was able to sit up in bed a lot and take notice of things. I heard a cow coming towards the house. She was bawling like cows do when they've lost a calf or when their bag is stretched too tight with milk, and I recognized Spot's voice. Spot's calf recognized it too. It stood hungry in a pen all night, and now it was nearly crazy for a drink of milk. I could hear it blatting and racing around in the cow pen, so starved it could hardly wait, and I called to Ma. Ma, you better go let old Spot into her calf. I hear her coming. That pesky Spot, I heard her say impatiently. I don't know what's gotten into her, staying out all night like that, letting her calf go hungry. I heard Ma calling to Spot as she went out to the cow pen, and a moment later I heard Spot bellow like a fighting bull, and then Ma's voice rising sharp and high. And then here come Ma, running into the cabin, calling for Elizabeth to hurry and bring in little Arliss. There was a scare in Ma's voice, and I sat up in bed as Elizabeth came running in, dragging little Arliss after her. Ma slammed the door shut and then turned to me. Spot made fight at me. I can't understand it. It was like I was some vermin that she hadn't seen before. Ma turned and opened the door a crack, and she looked out, and then threw the door wide open, and stood staring towards the cow pen. Why, look at her now. She's not paying one bit of attention to her calf. She's just going on past the cow pen like her calf wasn't there. She's acting as crazy as if she'd gotten a hold of a bite of pea vine. There was a little pea vine that grew wild all over the hills during wet winters and bloomed pale lavender in the spring. Cattle and horses could eat it, mix with grass and get fat on it, but sometimes, when they got too big of a feed of it, it poisoned them. Generally, they'd stumble around with the blind staggers for a while and then gradually get well. Sometimes, though, the pea vine killed them. I sat there for a moment, listening to Spot. She was bawling again, like I had first heard her, but now she was heading off into the brush again, leaving her calf to starve. I wondered where she had gotten enough pea vine to hurt her. But Ma, she couldn't have eaten pea vine. The pea vine is all dead, and it's gone this time of year. Ma turned and looked at me and then looked away. I know. That's what's got me so worried. I thought of what Bern Sanderson had told me about animals that didn't act right, and I said, Cows don't get hydrophobia, do they? I saw Elizabeth start at the word, and she stared at me with big, solemn eyes. I don't know. I've seen dogs with it, but I've never heard of a cow having it. I just don't know. In the next few days, while Old Yeller and I healed fast, we all worried and watched. All day and all night, Spot came right on doing what she did from the start. She walked, and she bawled. She walked mostly in a wide circle that brought her pretty close to the house about twice a day, and then carried her so far into the hills that we barely heard her. And she walked with her head down, and she walked slower, and her bawling got weaker as she got weaker, but she never stopped walking and bawling. When the bull came, he was worse, and a lot more dangerous. He came 2 or 3 days later, and I was sitting out under the dog run at the time. I hobbled out in to sit in a chair beside Old Yeller, where I could scratch him underneath his chewed off ear. That's where he liked to be scratched best. Ma was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. Elizabeth and little Arliss had gone off to the crick below the spring to play with the pup and to fish for catfish. I could hear them running and laughing along the bank, chasing after grasshoppers for bait. And then I heard this moaning sound and turned to watch a bull come out of the brush. He was the roan bull, the one that the droopy horn shogo had dumped into the Mexican cart the day of the fight. But now he didn't walk like any bull that I had seen before. He walked with his head hung low and wobbling. He reeled and staggered like he couldn't see where he was going, and he walked head into a mesquite tree like it wasn't there, and then fell to his knees when he hit it. He scrambled to his feet and came on, grunting and staggering and moaning, heading towards the spring. Right then, from the first time since we had brought him home, Old Yeller come up off his cowhide bed. He was laying there beside me, paying no attention or sight of the bull, and then I guess the wind must have shifted and brought him the bull's scent, and evidently that scent told him for certain what I had only begun to suspect. He rose with a savage growl. He moved out towards the bull, so trembly weak that he could hardly stand. His loose lips were lifted in an ugly snarl, baring his white fangs. His hackles raised a ragged ridge along the back and shoulders. Watching him, I felt a prickling at the back of my own neck. I had seen him act like that before, but only when there was the greatest of danger. Never while just facing a bull. Suddenly I knew that Ma and I had been fooling ourselves. Up until now we'd been putting up facing the facts. We kept hoping that the heifer Spot would get over whatever was wrong with her, and Ma and Elizabeth had kept Spot's calf from starving by letting it suck from another cow. They'd had to tie the cow's hind legs together to keep her from kicking the calf, but they kept her alive, hoping Spot would get well and come back to it. Now I knew that Spot wouldn't get well, and this bull wouldn't either, and I knew that they were both deadly sick with the hydrophobia. Old Yeller had scented that sickness in this bull and somehow sensed how fearfully dangerous it was. I thought of Elizabeth and little Arliss down past the spring. I came out of my chair, calling for Ma. Ma, bring me my gun, Ma. Ma came hurrying to the door. What is it, Travis? She wanted to know. That bull, I pointed. He's mad with hydrophobia, and he's heading straight for Elizabeth and little Arliss." Ma took one look and said, "Oh, my Lord," in almost a whisper. She didn't look and wait to get me my gun or anything else. She just tore out for the creek, hollering for little Arliss and Elizabeth to run, to climb a tree, to do anything to get away from that bull. I called after her, telling her to wait, to give me a chance to shoot the bull. I don't guess she ever heard me, but the bull heard her. He tried to turn on her, and stumbled and went to his knees, and then he was back on his feet again as Ma went flying past, and he charged straight for her. He'd have gotten her, too, only the sickness had his legs too wobbly. And this time, when he fell, he rooted his nose into the ground and just lay there moaning, too weak to even try and get up again. By this time, old Yeller was there, baying at the bull, keeping out of his reach, but ready to eat him alive if he ever came to his feet again. I didn't wait to see any more. I went and got my gun. I hobbled down to where I couldn't miss and shot that roan bull between the eyes. End of chapter 13.